A millionaire sat alone, dining on a meal that cost more than most people spend in a week. Outside, in the cold rain, a woman stood silently watching, hungry and heartbroken. But when she finally whispered the words, "May I have your leftovers, sir?" The miracle that followed didn't just change one life, it transformed an entire city at its early morning. The city hums with energy suits rushing to meetings, coffee carts steaming on corners, but for Clara Mendoza, every day begins with uncertainty. Her worn backpack carries everything she owns: a folded blanket, a few toiletries, and a weathered notebook, the one thing she treasures most. Inside are her late mother's handwritten recipes, smudged with oil and love. She walks to a small community shelter, offering to help chop vegetables in exchange for breakfast. The volunteers know her name. She's quiet but kind, always smiling when she hands out food to others before taking a portion herself. Clara was once a chafa brilliant one. She used to own a small restaurant called Solana's Table, named after her mother. Her food wasn't just delicious, it made people feel seen, cared for. But when the economy crashed, so did her dreams. One month she was cooking for others, and the next she was sleeping on park benches. Even after losing everything, Clara never stopped feeding people. Every night, she collected leftover food from diners and shared it with other homeless individuals who'd become her makeshift family. That quiet generosity, her refusal to give up her compassion, was her last connection to who she used to be. Night falls again. The rain begins to pour. Clara huddles beneath a broken streetlight with a small group of people. She passes out soup she's managed to reheat from a shelter kitchen's leftovers. "You always find a way, Clara," says an older man, smiling weakly. "It's not much," she replies softly, "but it's made with love. That's what matters." Her stomach growls, but she ignores it. She's used to hunger. What hurts more is the memory of her mother's voice. "Mija, when you cook for others, you feed their hearts too." And tonight, even with nothing left, she still tries to do exactly that. Meanwhile, in the city's most exclusive restaurant, Maison du Lys, sits Ethan Ward, late 40s, impeccably dressed, but his eyes tell a story of emptiness. He swirls his wine, staring at the empty chair across from him. His wife, Amelia, passed away a year ago. Since then, he's poured himself into work owning luxury restaurants, hosting galas, funding charities, yet nothing fills the silence she left behind. Ethan had wealth, power, and fame, but none of it could buy back meaning. His success felt hollow. His food, once his passion, tasted like ash. And on this rainy night, as he dined alone again, fate was about to serve him something he'd never expected. It's closing time. The restaurant glows warmly against the dark street. Clara stands under the awning, drenched, holding her bag close. Through the window, she sees Ethan finishing his meal, a perfectly seared steak, untouched sides, wine still half full. She hesitates. Pride tells her to walk away. Hunger and the thought of her friends waiting in the alley pushes her forward. Her voice trembles as she steps inside. "Excuse me." The maitre d' rushes over immediately, frowning. "Ma'am, this is a private establishment." Before he can finish, Ethan looks up. Their eyes meet. Something in her expression, humility, exhaustion, quiet strength, stops him. "It's all right," he says gently. "Let her speak." Clara takes a shaky breath. "I'm sorry to disturb you, sir. I just wondered if I might have your leftovers." The restaurant goes silent. Even the piano music seems to pause. Ethan blinks, caught off guard not by her appearance, but by the grace in her tone. No bitterness, no desperation, just dignity. "Are you hungry?" he asks softly. "I'm fine," she replies quickly. "It's for some friends outside. They haven't eaten." Ethan studies her, intrigued. A woman who has nothing and still thinks of others first. That moment those words stirred something deep inside him. He had spent years surrounded by luxury. Yet he'd never seen kindness so pure that he didn't know it yet. But his life was about to change forever. Before we continue with this incredible journey, I spent countless hours crafting this story to bring you something truly meaningful. If stories like this touch your heart, and you want to see more real acts of kindness that restore faith in humanity, please subscribe and tap that notification bell. It helps these stories reach others who need to hear them, and it means the world to me. Now, let's see what happens next. Ethan gestures toward the empty chair across from him. "Please sit." Clara freezes, startled. "Oh no, sir, I didn't mean to intrude. You're not intruding. Ethan interrupts gently. It's raining out there. Stay a while. The maitre d' looks uneasy, but Ethan's quiet authority ends the discussion. He signals the waiter to bring a fresh plate. Clara lowers herself slowly into the chair, her eyes darting to the half-eaten meal. The smell of the food hits her, rich, savory, familiar. You're very kind, she says softly. But I really just needed the leftovers. Then you'll take them, Ethan replies, smiling faintly. But first eat something warm. Please. In that moment, something remarkable happened. A man who'd built walls of wealth around his heart opened a door. And a woman who'd lost almost everything found herself seen for the first time in years. Yes, they eat. Ethan asks simple questions. Her name. Where she's from. At first, Clara answers cautiously. She's used to pity, to judgment, but Ethan's curiosity feels different. It's genuine. You used to be a chef? He asks, noticing her familiarity with the meal's aroma. Yes, she says with a faint smile. I used to own a little restaurant. Nothing fancy, just food that made people feel at home. What happened? Clara pauses, fingers tracing the rim of her glass. The economy, the rent doubled. My mother passed away. I tried to keep it going, but eventually, I lost it all. Her eyes glisten, but she doesn't let the tears fall. Still, I couldn't stop cooking. Now, I collect leftovers from restaurants and make small meals for the people who sleep near the park. It's not much, but it helps. Ethan sits back, stunned. A woman with no kitchen, no steady income still finds ways to feed others. That night, Ethan realized something. Kindness doesn't come from abundance, it comes from compassion. And this woman had more of it than anyone he'd ever met. The waiter returns, clearing Ethan's untouched food. Ethan stops him. Actually, he says, pack all of ivory dish from tonight. And add 5 extra portions. The waiter hesitates. For takeout, sir? Yes, Ethan says firmly. For her friends outside. Clara's eyes widen. You don't have to do that, sir. Maybe not, he replies, smiling gently. But I want to. He hands the warm bags to her himself. Steam rises in the cool air as she clutches them gratefully. Thank you, she says, her voice trembling. You have no idea how many people this will help. Actually, Ethan says, I'd like to find out. What do you mean? Take me to them. Clara blinks in disbelief. You want to come to the alley? If you'll allow it. And so, under one umbrella, they step out into the rain. They walk through narrow streets to a small covered alley near an abandoned bookstore. A few men and women huddle under tarps, clutching thin blankets. When Clara arrives, faces light up. Clara, you're back. Someone calls. I brought something special tonight, she says, smiling. Everyone, this is Mr. Ward. Ethan stands awkwardly at first and used to being the outsider. But when he helps hand out the food, something shifts. The laughter, the gratitude, it's raw, real, human. One little boy, maybe 10 years old, looks up at him and whispers, Thank you, mister. Ethan crouches to his level, smiling. No, he says softly. Thank you for letting me share. For years, Ethan had dined with the rich and powerful people who measured life by profit and prestige. But in that alley, surrounded by strangers who had nothing, he felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time, belonging. As the rain eases, Ethan walks Clara back toward the main street. You know, he says quietly, you remind me of someone I lost. Your wife. Clara asks gently. He nods. She used to say, food is love you can taste. When she died, I stopped cooking, stopped caring. Clara smiles sadly. Maybe it's time to start again. There's a pause, the kind that carries both pain and promise. Clara, he says, would you meet me here tomorrow? I'd like to hear more about your ideas. Maybe we can do something together. Clara hesitates, unsure whether to believe him, but his sincerity is undeniable. All right, she says quietly. Tomorrow. They part ways. The city lights glimmering around them like tiny hopes refusing to fade. That night, 2 broken souls, one rich. One poor, discovered the same truth. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can reignite a life. Neither of them knew it yet. But this was just the beginning of a journey that would feed far more than empty stomachs. It would feed hearts. What would you do if you discovered someone with incredible talent living in such difficult circumstances? Would you step in or walk away? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. When dawn broke the next day, something had changed for both of them. For the first time in years, Ethan Ward, the millionaire who had everything but meaning, felt excited to wake up. And Clara Mendoza, the woman who had nothing but faith, felt seen again. Ethan arrives early at a small cafe, his hands wrapped around a cup of black coffee. When Clara enters, wearing the same coat as the night before, the staff glance disapprovingly. He notices and immediately waves her over. Clara, over here. The waiter hesitates to serve her, but Ethan's calm, authoritative tone silences any judgment. She's my guest. Bring the best breakfast you have. Clara sits, slightly embarrassed. You didn't have to do that. No, he says, smiling. I wanted to. You mentioned cooking for the homeless. Tell me more about that. She explains how she collects leftovers from nearby restaurants every night sometimes. Even raw ingredients discarded because they're unsellable. She cooks them at the shelter's outdoor stove, turning scraps into meals that bring hope. It's not just food, she says quietly. It's dignity. People remember what kindness tastes like. Ethan leans forward, captivated. What if we could scale that up? Scale it up? Yes. Partner with restaurants, hotels, grocery chains. Collect what they'd throw away. Turn it into community meals. Clara laughs softly. That's a beautiful dream. But I can't even afford a stove. Then let's start small, he says. Together, that breakfast became the seed of something extraordinary. An idea that could feed thousands. But every seed needs soil. And not everyone wanted to see it grow. Over the next few weeks, Clara and Ethan meet daily. They collect food donations from restaurants, store them in Ethan's warehouse kitchen, and cook hot meals with a few volunteers from the shelter. The first day, they feed 20 people. The next, 50. By the end of the month, 100 hungry souls gather nightly under a banner Clara paints by hand. The Second Chance Kitchen. The city starts noticing. Local journalists film segments. A few of Ethan's wealthy acquaintances even donate, mostly for publicity. But while the crowds grow, so do the challenges. One afternoon, as Clara stirs a large pot of stew, a man in a suit storms in. He's Gregory Shaw, the city sanitation inspector and an old rival of Ethan's from the restaurant world. This operation violates multiple health codes, Gregory snaps. No permits, no inspections, no licenses. Clara wipes her hands nervously. Sir, we're feeding the homeless. Everything's clean, doesn't matter, he interrupts. You're done here. Ethan steps forward. Gregory, this isn't about regulations, and you know it. You just don't like that I'm doing something good without you. Gregory smirks. You think you can play savior? You're risking your reputation, and my department won't protect you. He slaps a cease operations notice on the door and walks out. Clara looks crushed. I told you this would happen, she whispers. People like me don't get second chances. Then we'll make our own, Ethan says firmly. They can't shut down compassion. That night, the kitchen went dark. But hope doesn't live in permits. It lives in people. Instead of giving up, Clara moves the operation to a new location, an abandoned subway station where many of the city's homeless sleep. There, with flashlights and portable stoves, they begin cooking again. Word spreads even faster. Volunteers arrive with donations. One local bakery sends leftover bread. A fruit vendor brings bruised apples. Ethan watches in awe as Clara orchestrates the chaos like a symphony. You've turned this into something unstoppable, he says quietly. She smiles. We're just feeding people. That's all. But Ethan shakes his head. No, Clara. You're feeding hope. Success brings pressure. The crowds grow larger. The media attention intensifies and Clara begins to feel overwhelmed. Late one night, she sits outside the station, staring at her mother's recipe notebook. Mom, she whispers, what if I fail again? What if I let everyone down? Ethan approaches, holding 2 cups of tea. You're not failing, Clara. You're changing lives. But it's too much, she says. Maybe you should find someone more qualified. Ethan shakes his head. You're exactly the person for this. Because you know what it feels like to be hungry, not just for food, but for hope. They sit in silence as the city hums above them. Every great dreamer faces doubt, but real strength isn't never falling, it's rising every time you do. Over the next few months, the Second Chance Kitchen gains national attention. A local TV anchor calls it the miracle of compassion. Restaurants sign on to donate unsold food. Even City Hall starts taking notice. But when a powerful developer buys the land where the subway kitchen sits and threatens eviction, Clara and Ethan find themselves in their biggest fight yet. The Second Chance Kitchen had grown from a few rescued meals into a movement that fed hundreds every night. But with growth came attention, and not all of it kind. When power feels threatened by compassion, it always fights back. Point one cold morning. Clara arrives at the subway kitchen to find construction fencing surrounding the entrance that a guard blocks her path. Sorry, miss. This site's been sold. You can't enter. She stares at the familiar archway, the place where hope was reborn, and feels her stomach drop. Moments later, Ethan pulls up. He's holding an official document, face pale. It's worse than we thought. The new owner, Gregory Shaw's development firm. He's behind this. Clara shakes her head in disbelief. He's trying to erase us. Not just us, Ethan says quietly. Everything this stands for. Overnight, the kitchen that had fed thousands was silenced. But silence, like hunger, can be temporary. The following week, Clara tries to stay strong, but the stress shows. She wanders the streets where she once collected leftovers. But now every alley feels heavier. Volunteers text her for updates. Journalists call for interviews. And still, she feels powerless. Point one night, she returns to the shelter and finds the children she used to feed staring at empty bowls. One little boy tugs at her sleeve. Miss Clara, will there be dinner tomorrow? She forces a smile. Yes, sweetheart. There will always be dinner. But as she turns away, tears fill her eyes. When you carry the hopes of others, giving up isn't an option even when your heart is breaking. Meanwhile, Ethan disappears for days. Clara assumes he's given up too, until one evening, she receives a call. Clara, come to 14th and Main. You need to see this. When she arrives, her breath catches out a massive warehouse freshly cleaned, lights glowing through its glass windows. Inside, tables line the floor, stoves hum, volunteers bustle about. Ethan stands in the middle, arms crossed, smiling like a man reborn. Welcome home, Clara. What? What is this? I bought the old Harcourt warehouse. It's yours, our new kitchen. Clara is speechless. Ethan, this must have cost every penny I had left, he interrupts, laughing softly. But for the first time, it feels like money well spent. Sometimes the biggest risks lead to the greatest returns, not in profit, but in purpose. The grand reopening of Second Chance Kitchen draws hundreds. Reporters cover the story. Food trucks and chefs volunteer to contribute. Meals. Clara moves through the crowd in a white apron, her late mother's apron. Orchestrating every detail, Ethan watches proudly as she hands a steaming bowl of soup to a mother and her daughter. The woman looks up, eyes wet. You have no idea what this means to us. Clara smiles softly. Oh, I think I do. Soon, a familiar figure appears. Gregory Shaw. He strides in, scowling at the cameras. You think this absolves you, Ethan? Feeding a few people doesn't change anything. Ethan meets his glare calmly. You're wrong, Gregory. It changes everything. Clara steps forward. You can try to shut us down, but you can't shut down kindness. It spreads like light in darkness. Applause erupts from the crowd. Even the reporters lower their cameras, visibly moved. That moment was the turning point. The night the city remembered that compassion is stronger than greed. Weeks later, the kitchen expands again with support from local businesses and city officials. They introduce community meals, cooking classes for the unemployed, and a pay-what-you-can cafe. But the true miracle comes one evening. When Ethan visits the shelter where Clara once slept, he finds her sitting beside the same boy who once asked if there'd be dinner tomorrow. The boy is eating happily, a bowl of stew made from her mother's recipe. Ethan sits beside her. You did it, Clara. She smiles, eyes glistening. No, we did it. And so did every person who believed that leftovers could feed hope. The miracle wasn't wealth restored. It wasn't fame or glory. The miracle was simple. A community healed by kindness. Months later, a scene mirrors the beginning. Clara, now dressed neatly, exits the new kitchen and sees a young woman sitting near the curb, cold and hungry. She approaches gently. Are you all right? The woman shakes her head. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Clara hands her a takeout box. Here. It's just leftovers. But they changed my life once. The young woman opens it, overwhelmed. Thank you. Ma'am. Clara smiles. Call me Clara. Everyone deserves a second chance. The story had come full circle. Point one act of kindness had rippled outward, transforming strangers into family, despair into purpose, and leftovers into miracles. Months turned into years, and the little movement that began with one humble question, "May I have your leftovers, sir?" became a symbol of hope for an entire city. The camera pans across the bright, bustling second chance kitchen. Volunteers laugh as they chop vegetables. A group of teenagers stirs a massive pot of soup. In one corner, a sign reads, "No one leaves hungry. Everyone leaves loved." Clara, now confident and radiant, moves gracefully between stations. Her apron reads founder. She teaches a young woman how to make bread using leftover flour and bruised bananas. See? Clara smiles. Nothing is wasted. Not food, not people. She'd gone from asking for leftovers to creating a legacy that nourished thousands. And Ethan? Well, his life had changed too. Cut to Ethan, standing on a stage at a community event, addressing a small crowd of donors and volunteers. His voice is steady, humble. For years, I thought purpose came from success, from opening restaurants, building an empire. But I was wrong. True fulfillment isn't in owning, it's in sharing. He looks toward Clara, who's smiling proudly in the front row. I didn't just invest in a project. I invested in a person, and she reminded me what humanity tastes like. The crowd applauds warmly. Ethan steps down and hands Clara a small envelope. She opens it. Inside is the deed to this second chance kitchen. "It's yours now, Clara," he says softly. "You built this. You've earned it." Clara's eyes well with tears. No one owns kindness. "Ethan, we just keep it alive." From two broken souls came something whole. A reminder that miracles don't fall from the sky, that they're cooked, served, and shared, one plate. One heart at a time. A young boy who once ate at the shelter now volunteers in the kitchen. Wearing a chef's hat 3 sizes too big. A retired baker donates. Pastries every morning, local. Restaurants start daily kindness hours. Serving free meals to those in need, the mayor signs. A new zero food waste policy inspired by Clara's model. The movement spread far beyond what either of them imagined. From one city to another, second chance kitchens began popping up, each one carrying the same message. Kindness is not a privilege. It's a responsibility. Later that evening, Clara walks alone through the city's bistro district, the same streets where her journey began. She pauses outside a familiar restaurant window where, years ago, she once whispered those fateful words, "May I have your leftovers, sir?" Inside, a wealthy man finishes dinner. As he stands to leave, a homeless woman hesitantly approaches him. The man looks surprised, then smiles and hands her the plate. Clara watches from across the street, tears glistening. And just like that, the miracle continued, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet moments where one person chooses compassion over comfort. Stories like this remind us that extraordinary kindness exists all around us, waiting for someone brave enough to start it. Clara and Ethan's journey began with a single question. Yours could start with a single action, a meal shared, a hand offered, a heart opened. So here's my challenge to you. Find one person today who needs kindness and give it freely. You never know. It might just spark the next miracle. If this story touched your heart, please like this video. It helps more people discover stories of hope, just like this one. Subscribe for more true acts of kindness that will restore your faith in humanity. And tell me in the comments below, what act of kindness will you perform this week? Because sometimes all it takes is one leftover, one moment, one heart to change the world.